Hi guys, welcome back to this series. I'm Dr. Mark Fabian, Associate Professor of Public Policy at the University of Warwick in the United Kingdom, and I've got a book coming out called Beyond Happy, How to Rethink Happiness and Find Fulfillment. In this series, I'm going to be going through each chapter of the book and just giving you the highlights. I want to stress that this book is super deep. This book is not a blog post. I hate books that should have been blog posts. I had a friend of mine who has a PhD in psychology describe it to me that each section of the book is basically a whole literature in psychology that you could write your PhD on. This book is meant to be a one-stop shop for well-being, and it covers so much stuff. There's a few bits missing, don't get me wrong. I don't really go into mysticism, for example, but just about everything is in there. So in chapter 1, I'm going to give you some highlights, but trust me, there's a lot more to read in this book than just what I'm going to be telling you in this short chat. What's chapter 1 about? It's about disposition, or the right attitude to have to your life. The first thing that you need to understand is that you have what's called homeostatically protected mood. Homeostasis is a tendency in some biological systems, some chemical systems, to come back to neutral. So they have a kind of stable equilibrium, and if they're knocked out of that, they recover to that stable equilibrium. And it takes a really big shock to knock them so far away from the equilibrium that they can't come back. So something like clinically diagnosable depression is the thing where you've moved really far away from that homeostatically protected mood. We haven't really come across anything in contemporary science that can knock you away from homeostatically protected mood into a state where you're just ecstatic all the time. What tends to happen instead is that we have a moderate background positive level of mood. So what that means is you're just like, not even happy, not like smiling necessarily, but you don't feel bad. You feel a tiny bit good most of the time. That's your mood, right? At the same time, you're always, more broadly when you're thinking about your life, a tiny bit dissatisfied. Even if you're not dissatisfied, if that's not the right word, you can still look around and think there are ways that this could be better. And those little ways that it could be better kind of nag at you. And this combination of homeostatically protected mood and a little bit of dissatisfaction, it's got evolution's fingertips all over it. If you were ecstatic all the time or depressed all the time, you wouldn't be active. You wouldn't be going about the business of feeding yourself, preparing for the winter, getting ready to defend yourself against predators, breeding, that sort of thing. You'd just be partying or crying under a tree, right? So we need that homeostatically protected mood to make us functional. At the same time, that little bit of dissatisfaction keeps us always trying to stay one step ahead of evolution. Evolution is generally a battle between predators and prey, between parasites and their host. And all of the actors in that evolutionary battle, they're always evolving. They're developing new strategies, new ways to parasite off you, new ways to kill you. So we also got to be always staying a little bit, tiny bit on the grind, right? And that's where that general psychological state comes from, of feeling pretty good, but struggling to stay really happy, and also struggling to stay genuinely just deeply satisfied with your life, not wanting anything to change. And we call this in modern psychological science the hedonic treadmill, right? That you're always running to stay in the same spot. And there always seems to be a carrot dangling in front of you that you need to try and catch, but you never quite get there. Now, I think there are basically 4 ways to approach the treadmill, and I'm going to advocate for the 4th one. The most common way that's advocated for in advertising and in a lot of self-help literature, and I think generally in capitalism, is what I would call the myth of materialism. And this is the idea that if I just work really hard, if I make enough money, if I grind set for decades, eventually I'll get to the end of the treadmill and I'll have tranquility, right? I'll be able to get off the treadmill because I'll have everything I need. I'll be satisfied. I'll be happy. I'll be at peace. That's just not the way our biology works. It takes a huge cultural effort to encourage everyone to think we have enough, the kind of things that indigenous cultures used to do in the days before modern technology. Under capitalism, it's always the idea, well, you could have a bigger house, you could have a bigger car, you could have a fancier car, you could have even finer dining, maybe you could have a private jet. So the wants are endless. You never get to the end of the treadmill if you pursue a materialist life. The other thing you can do is maybe be super ambitious. I would call this the grind set. And you see this a lot, I think, particularly in the kind of corporate space where what's celebrated is having your own sort of business or enterprise and just making it as big as possible. Now, I think this is quite problematic for two main reasons. It can work, don't get me wrong, you can be well pursuing the grind set. The problem is the impact that you have on others. So growing something infinitely on a finite planet is unlikely to lead to sustainability in the long run, which is one of the main challenges we face today. The bigger issue, I would say, is that typically in order to grow your own world in a corporate sort of setting, you often need to crush other people. I think it's quite telling that it would be so easy to be a beloved billionaire. You could just be giving money out left, right, and center. You could be pursuing good causes. When things happen that are really dramatic and need money, you could just write a check. It'll be easy. But the billionaires don't do that, do they? Because they're always trying to grow their wealth. And they always do that by extracting from other people and hoarding it. Billionaires seem to me like quite greedy, quite acquisitive, quite self-interested. Not people who are, I dare say in many cases, especially happy either. And that's partially because they're alienating a lot of the people around them. And the people that do gravitate towards them are often sycophantic. They're interested in the billionaires because of their money and their power, not because of the kind of people they are, the kind of personality they have. So I don't think the grind set's a great option for most people. For some people, the grind set is going to work, but have an honest think with yourself about what kind of person you are. The third option you could take is to get off the treadmill. That's what Buddhism's basically about. It's about really trying super hard, employing a range of practices like meditation, a range of religious beliefs, rituals, customs, getting together with other people who feel the same way to try to reduce the number of desires that you have. To really focus on the mood, focus on being in the moment and noticing what's good about the moment, being grateful for what's good about the moment, and not trying to focus on what could be better, what you could be dissatisfied with. There's obviously a deeper, more kind of metaphysical and spiritual version of Buddhism as well, but let's keep it as simple as that. You can get off the treadmill. I think maybe that's not a bad option for a lot of people. I particularly think that if you've been really captured by the grind set mentality and you've been striving for a long time and you've got your bigger car and your bigger house and all the rest of it and you still feel a bit empty inside, then a dose of that Buddhist approach where you try a little bit less hard for a while and focus on the things you already have and developing gratitude for those things you already have and investing more in your relationships and your experiences instead of your stuff, that can be really helpful for a lot of people. But what I counsel in the book is a fourth option. In my book, Beyond Happy, I suggest that you develop the treadmill into a place that you want to be. So keep in mind that the treadmill is always making you think, oh, well, I could try that as well. But also keeping you generally in a pretty good mood. So what you want to secure in the treadmill is a thing that's gentle, secure, in the sense that life's not going to get chaotic and out of hand and go sideways, or the treadmill's not going to shoot up an incline all of a sudden, but it's also dynamic. So it's not just kind of the same stuff all the time, or rather it is the same stuff all the time. It's the same stuff that you enjoy, the things that you find stimulating, engaging, interesting. Once you know what those things are, you don't need to keep trying all sorts of new stuff, but we do need to figure out what it is that we find captivating about life, fulfilling, meaningful, purposeful, this sort of stuff. And once we've figured that out, then we need to develop the security in our life to allow us to keep doing those things that we enjoy and find fulfilling, pleasant, valuable, and fulfilling. They're the three things that I talk about in the book, and not have us disrupted from that life and thrown off course. Now, the key question, and the subject of chapter 4 especially, is how do you find these values that are core to you, these behaviors, cares, things that you want to invest in that are really authentic to you, that really work for you. And I think the key point here, and a massive theme of this chapter, chapter 1, but also chapter 2, is that you've got to turn inwards, right? Only you know what's going to work for you, right? Other people can offer helpful advice, but ultimately it's going to be a matter of self-discovery to start with, right? So my advice, if you are struggling to figure out what to do with your life, how to be happy, how to find fulfillment, this sort of stuff, is to tune out from all the influences. And that includes me. Get off TikTok. TikTok is like sucking on an ashtray. Get off TikTok, get off YouTube, get off social media, get out of the self-improvement section of the bookstore and spend more time with yourself. Turn inwards. Now that might involve journaling, keeping a diary where you think about your thoughts. It might involve some kind of meditative practice. It might involve going for long walks, or just staring out the train window. Something where, in a sense, you embrace boredom. Boredom is a space in your mind for things to emerge, right? You've got to let those things happen. You've got to take yourself to a quiet place where time is primordial, somewhere like the forest or the beach, somewhere where things feel slower and feel like they've always been that way. And once you're in that kind of conducive environment, which might just be like, I don't know, your bathtub or something, run yourself a nice warm bath, put some Epsom salts in there, get a bit of lavender going, feel chill, and think about what things matter to you. And that might involve reflecting on your childhood and what sort of things you really enjoyed as a kid, what sort of things made you incensed, so really brought about your moral interest in the world, things that you thought were unethical or villainous or evil. Those are things that maybe now you want to direct your life towards ending. Right? They can be really meaningful and purposeful pursuits today in the present life. Think about what things brought you joy. Think about what things made you feel really calm, respected, fulfilled. What sort of people did you like hanging out with? Why did you like hanging out with them? Start to develop a really rich and thorough understanding of yourself. And once you understand yourself, then you can set about trying to create the life that you envision that's emerging from yourself. And we'll talk about how to do that, especially in chapter 4. I'll see you then.